One big one, be prepared, well prepared. And we'll talk through some of this stuff later on too. We'll get into some of the interaction stuff after the break. But I've come to realize that both this one and the next one fall hand in hand. Being able to discern and respond appropriately. I think the better prepared you are, the more you run scenarios through your head, the more you begin to think through different angles, different aspects, different details, the more you begin to flesh out and to see what God wants to do in that situation, in that moment, the better prepared you are to do that, the better able you are to respond if something happens. Because let's face it, no matter how good your plans are, no matter how detailed it is, no matter how perfectly put together it is, sometimes something will blow up. Not necessarily because of your fault, not necessarily because it's anyone's fault, but because something happens, for whatever reason. And the question is, how do you respond to that? How do you react to that? How do you deal with it? Because you're the leaders. So how do you deal with that situation, right? So how are you able to discern and respond appropriately? And the one that I just thought of as you were talking through, I think one thing to be aware of is that sometimes we think team captains need to be extroverted. You need to be like, right, like just kind of like all crazy, Tasmanian devil-like and that sort of thing. And the thing is that I realize some of you have that personality. God bless you, go do it, right? Be Taz, go do all that kind of stuff, right? That's you, go do it, that's fine. But the thing is that I know some of you are not like that, right? Some of you by nature are more introverted. Some of you by nature are more contemplative, or are not necessarily as so rah. And on the one hand, yeah, you need to be loud sometimes, and you need to be directive, and you need to sometimes have that presence to move people, to lead people. But that being said, if you're aware of who you are, if you are that kind of introverted person, there are ways to work with that as a team captain. I won't necessarily get into it now, but something that we can always talk through either email, and I'm not on Facebook, and I don't know if I want to be on Facebook, but or even by a telephone, stuff like that. I mean, we can always work through some of that kind of stuff. But again, don't think that you have to be tabs. Be who God's created you to be, whatever way that looks like, and be strong in that. I don't think sometimes when I think of Joshua, I don't think he was necessarily this kind of big, 6'8" guy with buff shoulders, standing there, all right, do not be afraid, all this kind of stuff. The more the God keeps on saying to him, don't be afraid, be courageous, don't be afraid. He says that over and over and over again. Because I picture Joshua like this probably 5'5" guy who's just like clicking his boots because Moses is dead now, and I gotta lead this 1.4 million people into the promised land. What the snot am I gonna do now? And I think Joshua in many ways isn't that kind of charismatic leader, but he's a faithful leader. He's not necessarily a big, strong, or rambunctious leader. I think he's a quiet leader, but he's faithful. And he realizes if God's going to help me through this, if God's going to use me, then I have to trust that and lead. So just be aware of that. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, and I think I said 10 minutes, but let's make it 5.